Yes, we have began this broadcast. But what I'm calling with you all now is just to come and rest in your heart for a moment. So bring your awareness to your heart. And we're just going to link up with everyone else that's online to this conversation that we're having. So I'd like you to simply feel or know the silence in your heart. And for those of you that have practiced the form, I'd like you just to take just one piece of the form, just a moment of reality practice. You can just hold the position, and for those that don't know what the form is, didn't even know there was such a thing, we'll look at this as we go along, but maybe just turn your palms up and just help connect on a deeper level, because that's what we're interested in this call, connecting on a deeper level. So we're just taking a few moments. I'm feeling you in my heart. I'm knowing you in my inner space. I'm knowing that one that we all come from, and indeed in the deepest place, that one that we are. And as we make this connection, let's make it even wider than just this group in this conversation. Connect ever wider and ever deeper with the peoples, the beings on this planet. Because in the deep, we're all one. And therefore we're all connected and linked together in this great ocean of moving life and moving consciousness. And that's what we're going to look at. Please forgive me if I say this evening, but it's dark here. It's probably daytime where you are, or whatever it is. Welcome to this conversation, and I've called this conversation, and you'll see me look down occasionally because, as some of you know, I don't retain much here. It's all here, and I discover and unfold what is here, and that's basically what this evening is about: unfolding meaning. Unfolding meaning, committed to recognize freedom's threshold, and that's really a powerful thing that we're going to look at this evening, because the whole day long in the movement of life, life to, let's just say, to an unawakened being, in other words, a being that's as yet asleep to the true purpose of life, or the movement of life unfolding a deeper, a more profound vibration from the profundity of the ground of being, so that's deep within, and unfolding that and bringing it into form, into life, into the movement of life, the movement of the stars, the movement of the trees, the movement of our conversation, the movement of our hands, the movement of our feet, the movement of our mind, the movement of ourself. And we're going to look at this as we move along. And I've just got a couple of little points that I've jotted down on some paper here that I may occasionally just remind myself of these points. So there is a movement of life, and I who am listening, including the speaker, I who am listening am the movement of life. And indeed, the movement of life that you see in the trees, the movement of life that you see in the stars, the movement of life that you see in the wind, that movement of life is moving forward. It looks like, to a mind that's self-interested. These aren't judgments. Please do hear this. This is just how it really is. To a mind that's caught up in the patterns of the past, the patterns of wanting and needing, simply because the consciousness behind that wanting and needing doesn't know its own divinity, doesn't know it is divinity, doesn't know it's abundant and free, and never endingly unfolding life in the cosmos, life in our universe, life in our living room, life in our relationships. So the whole movement of life is literally unfolding meaning. So let's just look at what do I mean unfolding meaning? What I mean by that is things look like, to most human beings, that we're this body-mind, that we're this pattern display of relationship, the fact that we know the house we live with, we know the people we live with, we know our habits actually, we even know other people's habits, that we have a knowing or a knowledge about our movement of life as an individual, literally as an individual human being. We know that, and most of that, if we look and we're clear, we actually see that most of that is habitual. It's a movement that we recognize our self in, our self being the structure. Here it is made up in human flesh, but it's more of an energetic patterning that's given form as my body, indeed also as my mind, is given form so that I may know myself. I, the profound one, I, the only one, I, the source of all life. It's like a diamond in your pocket, that I, in that is multifaceted, endlessly shining. It's the same light shining out the core of the diamond, but it comes out in many, many different facets, many, many different displays of that light moving as life. So on one level, on a human level, most of our relationship with life is a patterned level. We get up in the morning, we do what we do, we go to work, or whatever it is we do. There's a movement of our life. So most of it we begin to identify with as who we are, not realizing that's the self, small self. That's the self that I consciousness have patterned actually or created to move through in ever greater meaning. Meaning being ever greater connection, communion, and a display of creativity, of relationship, both inner and outer. That I use this self, I, this being that I am, I use this self to unfold the unfathomable power, glory, beauty and wonder that I, who am listening, that I am. So there's a greater movement of life than what we will experience on the timeline of our humanness. There's actually a vast innermost life that is, as it were, flowing and almost pushing us into a new threshold, a new possibility to experience a greater depth, a greater realization in this unbelievable, let's just call it place, in the depth of me that is moving to come into forms of life through my humanness, through who I am as this man, this woman, this human being. So unfolding meaning then is happening every moment of our lives. Every moment of our lives, for instance, some of you may know that we actually are broadcasting this from the She Cafe, and there's an audience here of people, and this cafe has been very busy today, and a great deal of movement of both men, women, children coming in and moving in life. And the conversations that go on in this cafe, as they do in our life, is the movement of life. And that movement of this life is a juncture point to move in a profounder, ever more greater power of life, to come in and literally meet the pattern of the moment and move it on. Everything is actually about moving life on. And I am the mover. I who am listening am the mover. I'm also the remover. I don't know if you noticed that. You know, I'm the removal person, the removal being. I both remove, disclose, and unfold an ever deeper level of my being into existence, into relationship with my body-mind vehicle, and with other beings, also wearing their body-mind vehicle to display and unfold the greater meaning of universal life, to have form, to have consciousness, to bring about and develop as conscious awareness, a greater human relationship that links our conversation to the stars, that links our movement to the supreme beings, or the supreme being that we all flow from and come from and are one with in truth. So there is an unfolding, a continual unfolding. And in an ordinary life that we all live, ordinary but extraordinary really, each and every moment or movement of life, no matter at what level, we're on thresholds. There's not a single conversation, not a movement that we can have on any level that's not a threshold to a greater place of joy, bliss, and real self-knowledge. In short, abundance. That everything that actually takes place is a threshold. And the threshold is it's like a marriage. You all know, the groom carries the bridegroom through the threshold, which is a new life. And each and every moment of relationship, whether it's inside or outside in conversation with other, or moving things around in your life and creating, you're actually on a threshold of a choice of bringing across into that threshold, moving into that threshold, into a deeper, more profound opening, into a deeper meaning to have a conversation, to have a movement of a hand, to inspire life in ever higher frequencies, ever deeper presence of loving being here in this universe, here on this earth, here with your friends, here with your family, here with a stranger, here with your coffee, here in this life of great, profound possibility, actually. So we're ever on thresholds that we either carry ourselves into a new life, or actually we stumble back into the old life. That's really how it is if you have a look. Of course, if we're going to unfold and recognize that there is meaning and value in every single experience of life, no matter what it feels like or looks like, if we're going to recognize that, then we have to be called to choose as conscious awareness to move forward into that new place and basically remove ourselves from the patterning of past that still beckons us to go around the bend, the U-bend of past experiences. If we're really to move forward and really to walk forward and gift into our lives, into the life of humanity, a greater possibility to literally download it into our lives, then we have to wholeheartedly respond, literally to carry all the forms of our life through that threshold. It's freedom's threshold, because if one chooses to completely take your life as it is and step through that threshold, then that threshold is not a massive, great big door. It is on the other side. This side, it's about that big. It's like a pinhole, it's the eye of a needle, as it was once said. That to carry all that through there, well, that requires a wholehearted, full-bodied response to the great love that is moving and creating anew this universal life through us, as us, in every single moment. That's the possibility that exists within us all, the recognition of who we really are, the recognition that we are actually not only connected to, but one with a profound beingness, a profound divine innermost beingness. And to remain communing to that and responding to that is unfolding meaning in every moment of life. There's nothing that doesn't have a greater unfolding of meaning. From the smallest little thing that we might think is, oh, well, that's okay, we can just forget that. That the smallest thing is unfolding a deeper inner connection that has great value to all of humanity and the universe. Should just one being, one human being, constantly make that connection, then you're literally creating freedom's road, not just for yourself, but for bringing it in as a greater relationship to live a life that's committed to go beyond the known and bring in the unknown, threshold after threshold after threshold, transforming ourself through not identifying who we are as self, but literally taking a leap that we are heart, awareness, consciousness, creating self. Then we're really unfolding meaning. Then we're really walking forward. So it's literally what we're looking at here, and what I'd like to have a conversation with you and these people here is, everyone actually has a meaningful power. There's no one that you ever meet, even if they don't seem to be very meaningful to yourself. Everyone is full of meaning. Full of meaning. But meaning can connect you ever, ever deeper when one begins to commit to unfolding meaning in every aspect of life. This is going to have you knowing yourself, the self-structures that you have. It's also going to have you experiencing those old patterns so much more than what you would do if you weren't becoming aware of who you really are in the deepest place, who everyone really is, who you meet on this highway of life. So those patterns then begin to be so much more moving, because they're moving towards you, meaning. You are meaning. They're moving towards meaning, to be taken into a deeper, meaningful place, transformed in the light of your consciousness, in the light of your profound awareness, beginning to move forward in a greater life light to bring about the profound gifts that are in the deep of you, yet to exist. This is what we're looking at. I'm trusting you're getting this on some level. I'm just going to have a look if there's anything else I want to speak to you about before I think I kind of covered this in that what I'd like to say is what I'm speaking of isn't some hairy fairy tale. It's the truth that each and every one of us are truly creators, and creators of our own destiny, if you like, from rooting ourselves through first off discovering a greater place within our heart to respond to, and through letting go as we do our identification with this self that seems to be who we are, but beginning to see that this self is an incredible instrument of our first power. So I want to look at this with you. Please feel free to come in right now and hands up anybody who wants to come into a conversation with this, including our audience here. And my question to you, are you really looking for freedom? I mean, how many times today, literally today, probably can't count it on your hands, how many times today did you actually experience a new threshold, but maybe chose an old way, and thinking that you were overpowered by the old way, but actually the old way and its power was literally asking you to take it on from this deeper place, from this recognition of true freedom. Okay, so we're going to have a look. So who's online here? Who we got? Glenn, is that Glenn?
Yes.
Hi, Glenn.
Hi, Bernie.
Hi. Welcome.
Oh, wait a minute. Yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
I cannot see you. Can you see me?
You are as large as life on the screen, Glenn.
Okay. Great, great. Hi, Bernie. We've met before. I've been in your
I
workshops.
recognize you, yeah.
Hi. Great. It's good to see you again.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. I have a question, and I understand what you've been saying about moving deeper. And I know for myself, I take full responsibility for myself in moving deeper, or when I fall, when I miss those places, and have retrospect of where I missed an opportunity to be deeper, and take responsibility for all of that. I like to look at things in a practical way as well and create examples for myself so I can integrate these lessons of life and going deeper into my day-to-day living.
Right.
So within that, I'm always looking for some sort of balance within myself, and maybe that's part of my question here, that a balance of loving myself, loving others, not trying to be attached too much of response to others when I'm trying to be my most deepest, authentic self. And sometimes that's a challenge. That's a challenge for me daily. I have a particular example I could make.
May I just comment on what you've just brought in so we don't lose our communion together? May I do that?
Please.
Okay, because this may help you, okay? Otherwise I like to catch these key words that we use when we have a conversation. And you mentioned about balance in the self.
Yes.
Let me just speak about that a little, and you and everyone else that's listening, including myself, see how this works. There can be no balance in yourself while you believe you're that self. There can be no balance in it. When we move as self, when we move identified with the body and mind, then there will be no balance in that self, because balance is dependent on consciousness remaining heartfelt connected with what it first is in the deepest place at core. You could, if we were to point to that place, I would point towards the heart, but actually it's in the heart, but beyond the heart. So what I point to is to truly be in balance, is to truly be what you first are and respond totally to what you're knowing to be true in the core of your heart. If you ask yourself how this should look, if you need a particular feeling in self, mentally or emotionally, you won't be able to make true balance. You'll still be unbalanced. True balance comes from a total commitment to respond to what you're deeply knowing is true. Now that's not going to feel too comfortable in yourself. Do you see what I mean? So to me, it's to discern as consciousness that when I respond to the moment of life from the core of my real knowledge, I do not move out of that because myself's not feeling too good about where I'm now coming from, I consciousness. Do you see what I mean? So to me, balance will only come when we're willing to die for that balance, to have form through ourself. So there is in transformation endless death, Glenn. Endless death, endless letting go, endless surrender. But only to that has no beginning and end. That is all powerful, all loving, all gracious, all amazing, is that I who am listening, am learning to respond full-heartedly only to that deeper knowledge, no matter what it costs in self. So to me, to have a profound commitment to that, and I support that in this teaching with the form, in that for me, for practicing a practice like the form is bringing about an enablement of a deeper place, a deeper communion inside, and to respond and move from that deeper communion. Then you're beginning to be able to respond to that deeper level and literally learn as that deeper level to hold your forms into their transformation. You know, you're learning to be directly, deeply present. You're learning to recognize what this is truly all about. You're learning to die, literally, for that to take place. When I say literally, I'm talking about to those old forms that energetically may cause quite a bit of discomfort in yourself. This is self-mastery, of course, because as you begin to be the living heart, the living presence, this will be no problem for you. This is who you are. You, every one of us, is what I'm speaking of. So true balance comes when consciousness lets go in each moment and unfolds real meaning. Let's go to trying to create balance in self. And the only way that happens is a full response to the first power that it is in the deepest place. That's how balance moves into self. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, I'm hearing that there is no balance within balance. That I must be okay with any sort of unbalance, and that will create its own balance.
Just a bit of noise coming through there. I'm just trying to get rid of it.
Yeah.
In existence, balance arrives through one profoundly knowing who one is, and and living from that place, and that then moves through into very practical things in life. You know, it literally is a place of not compromising what you're unfolding in meaning inside yourself in this deeper place and bringing that about. So balance actually comes into yourself only when you're being profoundly true to that place that needs no word like balance. Have I confused you?
No, you haven't. I understand. Thank you.
Of course, you know, we can see and hear that costs a great deal in ourself, right? You can feel the cost of that. You can know the cost of that. Like if we're so used to moving from self and not moving from the deepest place that we know is true within who we really are, then we may feel fear move through self, because literally we're dismantling what we once believed in a patterned way, what we once believed we were. We're literally embracing those patterns from the ground of our being and literally kissing them free. This is not who I am. This is not who we are. And you literally kiss them free from the core of your being. To me, if you move in that love, as that love, then yourself will yield. Just depends on whether you value yourself more than you value the truth you're knowing in the deepest place.
Could you repeat that last piece? If I value myself more than my deepest place?
If we look, we will see the habits of humanity up to this point, because to me everything is evolutionary. Our habit, if we look, we can see our habits. And our biggest habit, which is an amazing habit actually, is believing that we're the body-mind, and believing we need certain things and certain feelings and certain forms to be who we are. But actually we don't. All those forms that exist in ourself are only energized by that we profoundly are in the deep. But if we hold those forms more valuable than what we first most deeply are, those forms will continue a repetitive pattern of past, and we start to have attachments to have things a certain way. So we begin to lose our freedom. Freedom being a consciousness that's so pure and so clean and so real that we just look at form, and form instantly turns into the form of that purity, the form of that first power. Do you see what I mean?
Yes. It's more clear. Thank you.
That's how it works. And of course, transformation is beginning to recognize who I deeply am amongst all the patterns. So we're not saying, okay, we're just going to scrap these patterns, you know, don't need them, get out a brush or TNT and explode them. Now we're seeing and recognizing the value of human life and the necessity for patterning, but also the relationship between what we deeply are as conscious awareness and our relationship to the forms of ourself. And when we get a clear relationship with the forms of ourself from the core of our being, we're able to transform self patterns on that old timeline to ever-present forms of a deeper innermost reality. Things begin to shine. We begin to have a shining relationship with the people that we meet, with our own self, and our relationships begin to shine in freedom. because we're in a profounder practice of a deeper recognition of the one that exists in each and every heart. So it's our real consciousness that turns forms or patterning into present forms of pure love, of pure experience. You're learning, I'm learning, we're all learning to discern the difference between the deepest place and a pattern that's holding us prisoner. Or is it calling us to free it?
Thank you.
There's more there for you, Glenn. I don't want to let go of you at the moment.
There is one more.
Yeah?
The practical part, and you've probably heard this question, a flavor of it a few times. There is one that I am deeply in love with, and our connection has been profound, and yet cannot find balance in it. And I know it's part, I'm going to speak for myself, it's part of my old patterning, and I'm going to speak for her side or whatever, part of her patterning. And yet there's so much there, and I cannot find balance.
Okay. Well, there is balance there. It's very easy. Would you like it?
Yes.
Okay. Then die to all your patterns for that love that reflects the true you in your relationship. If you're speaking of a woman, if that woman matches a true light within your own heart, in other words, she reflects to you a form of your pure consciousness, then if that's the case, you could profoundly let go of all your old patterns in that light of love and embrace where that will take you and give everything else up. Would you like to breathe?
I've tried that and failed.
May I say, give up the trying. The trying, Glenn, only happens when we intend to move forward, but we want to take some of the past with us. Security. It's an energetic security, but nonetheless it's a false security. So when love really beckons on the deepest level, and if it comes within the form of a relationship, do you see, in this instance we're speaking of man and woman, yes? So when a man is called by the feminine, and that feminine touches his heart in the deepest place, and he's beginning to truly be pulled to know that great love that's now having form, because it's really his formless love inside that he's connecting with the outside, then he's pulled through the eye of the needle, and that will dissolve his separate sense of self. But to keep walking into that, you can't look for balance, because you won't find any balance in yourself, right? You'll only find the balance in your heart that is completely and absolutely committed to walk towards that love. Yourself won't find balance in that. Only occasionally will you discover balance. Because balance is when you commit yourself to that innermost reality in this reflection with this woman in this case, that you commit yourself to that, it will disturb the hell out of your old patterning. So you can't look for balance there. Balance is found in your heart, where you go, I know this is true. That's balance. Balance is in your self-knowledge, nothing to do with yourself. But if you were to move towards this completely and utterly, then your heart then could move in yourself. And from that, yourself will transform. So if you're moving in what is a real commitment to love and to serve that love and unfold the meaning in being pulled to such a relationship, then it wouldn't matter to you how unbalanced yourself becomes, because you're beginning to know the primal balance that exists in the core of your heart, because in the core of your heart, yin and yang is one, masculine and feminine is one. So then when you just follow your heart's freedom, you will know freedom, and you will know beauty, and you will know love. And then that love will then start to come into yourself, and you'll be transforming yourself from your heart. I don't know whether that was clear enough for you, but that's how this works. Looking for balance in yourself, you'll never find it. Balance only is in your direct experience of being true.
But yes, I agree and feel what you say to be true. And for me, that balance is also being truly authentic to myself and holding my masculine space and not collapsing, or not only this, to only agree to the way she wants to be loved, that I have to be true to myself.
Are you still there, Glenn?
In order to be true to anyone else.
Are you being true? Are you being true? Are you there, Glenn?
And yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No, we
Hello?
couldn't.
Oh.
Everything you just said vaporized into space.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I wonder why that was. Glenn, you can't be true to yourself. That's a very old, unworthy statement. You can only be true to truth. You can't be true to yourself. Be true to truth, and truth will undo yourself. And when woman comes in a true interaction, she is the instrument to undo yourself. And in that, you will lose yourself and discover who you are. And in that, masculine presence is involved. You won't need to be masculine presence, because you are. The old idea of what masculine presence looks like, well, that'll be dying all over the place. Because real masculine presence is not actually interested in yourself. Real masculine presence is only interested in her. That's all it is, only in her. Right at the core, it's interested in her. So this is a real incredible transformation that can take place for man if he is really committed to truth in the depth of him and the light which attracted him in woman. If that light is true in him, he will definitely die 1,000,000 deaths. Check it out, right? It's best to have a smile with this, okay?
I do. I'm smiling, yes.
Yeah.
I've already tried a few.
Obviously not enough, Glenn. Not enough. Real death leads to incredible love. Real death does. Never give up dying, because you're dying for love. That's the same as dying for God or Source. And as long as you're true to that core, then woman, or the feminine principle, will open to you in the embodiment of that woman. And she will begin to know you as consciousness, as the masculine presence, on a deeper level displayed in her own heart. But she wants you to die for that. At the same time, You're literally learning to be so radically true, unfolding meaning after meaning after meaning, and always in a place in which you discern yourself from the real you. Do you see what I mean? This is a very powerful movement. I believe you can feel it now. This is what I'm knowing anyway. That it's there. So this is the, if you like, the birthing of a brand new form of consciousness as Glenn, and a brand new consciousness as the woman that you're drawn to, embodied. If you embark on that, life will never look the same again, as it should not. If your life looks the same, you've not really loved. You've not really loved. Please hear when I say these things, I'm not talking to you personally. You know, I'm talking to humanity. Yeah. Life.
Yes.
Yeah. When we're really attracted, everything that keeps that true communion and oneness from happening begins to burn in a fire. You know, that's what happens. It's not comfortable for yourself, but it's deeply inspiring to your soul. And that will definitely come through. But it will cost you everything that you believed you are, or even she is. And as you move towards this, right, which is what I'm calling this evening unfolding meaning, then you actually begin to enter higher frequencies of meaning that begin to inspire you to reach deeper into her, because you're accessing deeper places within your own beingness. It doesn't come about by sparing your life. It actually comes about by losing your life. And that's actually birthing a new life.
Okay. Part of me feels like it's too late. I may have blown it or whatever, and there's nothing I can do to fix it.
Okay, let's look at that another way. I'm feeling inspired. Okay?
Say that
Let's look at that
again.
another way. Okay? It's never too late, because you don't actually exist as a time entity. You can enter any time as a timeless being. So as a timeless being, if that pull towards her is true, then you can undo that timeline that you saying it's too late. It's never too late. Go towards that love, but be prepared to completely undo everything in time you believed yourself to be, or what relationship is about. And that is freedom's threshold. Consciousness as profound masculine, profound feminine, you'll be entering a higher level relationship, a higher level masculine presence. That's what you'll be entering. That's what you have to believe in. Regardless what your self displays, your self will not display what I'm speaking of. Not as yet. Not until you're over the threshold, and then it'll start to display it. But you are it. You are it. So it's not too late.
Thank you.
Remove yourself, remove who you are from yourself. Jump back into your heart and be that presence. And discern yourself from your heart's real knowing. In that you'll begin to love yourself and heal yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. And be
Yeah.
prepared to die even for yourself, to bring greater love to your self-display. This is you learning self-mastery, self-love, and being a living, meaningful being that's here to, well, to sing love, to sing of love and to sing of union.
Okay.
Do you realize all the people that are listening to this, Glenn, are so one with you? They're all feeling your dilemma, and yet they're feeling your heart. They're all feeling the possibility, and yet they're feeling the trials and tribulations. You see, we're one. We're one. So we're unfolding meaning together right now. So this meaning is just going out through all of us, and we're all being unified in the meaningful presence of love and life and communion. This is happening now, and you can bask in its grace. We can bask in its grace. Beautiful to meet you and see you again.
Yes. Thank you, Bernie.
Maybe we'll see each other in the States when I'm over.
I'll try. I won't try, but we'll meet up again. Yes.
Okay. One last comment. Give up
Yeah.
trying.
I know. I just corrected myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Glenn.
Thank you, Bernie.
Go well. Okay. Thank you, Glenn, and we're going to move on to another call, and I believe we have Jan on the line. But Glenn's still there at the moment. You need to hang up, please, Glenn.
Yes, I will.
So we're calling Jan. Jan is from Holland.
Hello.
Hi, Jan.
You see me?
I see you, yeah, I can see you.
Okay. I don't see you, but that's okay. Hi, Bernie. I was teaching two people the form last weekend, and there's one lady who had sexual abuse in her youth. And when I was teaching her part 4, from that part from the budding of the lotus, and then the feminine goes into this full circle of life. And she had real big trouble, to make that movement. And I knew it had to do with her experience in her youth about sexual abuse, and I communicated that, and it made a lot of sense. But then I also intuited something that if this lady was to endeavor to put a lot of consciousness into this movement and to really move through that movement, I saw that she would put more light into that part of her life. Is that true?
It is true that the whole point and purpose behind the form is to make movement conscious. It seems to be the movement is just a hand doing this in this case, but it's actually the movement from a profounder place within, seen, embodied as that particular form, that particular shape. So it's a big calling, Jan, as you know, to give yourself so fully to moving in the form and its practice as it is. It is a big thing, as it were, to move in life so absolutely consciously and in the moment when the human psyche is still very much held back by past patterning. But the whole point is that each one of us actually is inside the deep, we're one with Source in that place. So you're right in that putting more consciousness into the movement can bring about a deeper transformation. Nonetheless, that individual still has to, on some level, face that pattern in its energy, in their own consciousness, and we're so used to, when that energy happens, giving it visuals. There's like visuals that come with it, you know? They kind of move with it, and we believe in that. So that the whole point is they can be pretty painful for anyone to unfold a pattern. The main thing is, within the practice of the form, to bow down inside oneself while practicing it in a greater communion with the beyond. It's that greater communion with the beyond that will soften your heart, soften your experience, open up the pattern, and hold it from a profounder place. So you're allowing a profounder place of consciousness to literally hold that for you. Of course, it's who one is on a finer level, but nonetheless, bring her to practice with greater softness, greater openness, greater bowing down inside herself while she practices. You'll find that, yes, it will undo that pattern. But nonetheless, as a teacher, you'll be holding her in this space. You know, it's like when you practice in the form and you're having the courage to teach it, you also become response able according to where you're coming from and to how you've evolved. You can then hold another as consciousness and also be another power, as it were, to assist the other to move through. It's like right now in this conversation, with all these people online and communing into a profounder place whilst we're relating together, that energy is literally going around the whole circuit of each and every one of us. And that's empowering and unfolding a greater meaningful consciousness, a meaningful power to come down and touch everyone where we need this, you know? That's what's actually happening. So you support her in this, hold her in this, and she'll find the form will also support her in this, hold her in this, bowing down inside, softening in the heart. It will be going exactly to where it needs to go.
Mm. Bernie, would you say if as I endeavor to teach more parts of the form, it gets more and more challenging? You know, I really had for the first time had quite a lot move in me, in myself, you know, not so much in my students,
yes,
but within myself. And but then, you know, they were practicing, and I just do a little part of the form, and then it dissipates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's rather like this other conversation we just had with Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, what's happening here? We're communion as conscious awareness. So we all have a profounder knowledge. We have a profounder knowing because that's who I am. We are that first power, really. But we have a self that we are developing. So we're developing this human self. And all selves, all human selves are at different stages of development, different stages of evolution. So what happens is when you're practicing the form, you are accessing a deeper place of awareness and consciousness. but that deeper place doesn't yet have a self that it can respond in as that first power. So it's developing it. So as you practice the form, you're opening to a deeper place, but you as consciousness, you're having to bring the ability through the practice and the bringing of that practice into your life, you're developing the ability to, of bringing that movement of consciousness into yourself. So you're developing yourself to be able to do that. So what you're coming upon is that yourself is not up to that ability as yet. Do you see what I mean? So when you practice part 1, part 2, and you're practicing it, you've been doing it for some while now, then you've developed that ability in yourself. So there's parts of yourself that belong to your heart. So there's a complete communion. There's no difference between the part of the self and your heart. But that's forever unfolding, the more of what you are. So you've just moved, as you said, to teach those higher levels. Well, that's asking more of you as consciousness, which is asking more of you as self. So you're learning how to embrace those patterns as they move in yourself, and responding to your heart will develop yourself to have the ability to move as the first consciousness contained within your own heart. You following what I'm saying? Was that too complex?
Yeah. No. I got that.
That's what's actually happening. So when you come upon that movement, that's great stuff. Because that means you as consciousness are going in there and you're developing that self to respond as your heart. And so that's heartfelt consciousness moving into self. And I was having a conversation with someone yesterday rather about this, and I pulled up something that Jesus said, that you can't put new wine into old bottles. It has to be emptied out. So what's actually happening with you as you teach that higher level, you're moving your consciousness to a profounder place within the ground of being. Therefore, your self is responding to that. Life will respond to that. And patterns will move as they lift towards that light you're endeavoring to embody. So to pour that new wine into that self, you're having to burn those self patterns. You see what I mean? Embrace those self patterns, even bring love for that self, so that you can pour that new wine as you empty out yourself. That's what's actually happening. So you're developing the ability to move as your first power, to move as that pure consciousness. You're developing that in yourself. That's what's happening.
Yeah, so the heaviness I moved after the course was actually burning of these old bottles, is it?
That's exactly it. It's burning away the old patternings that have to come out for you to be filled up, for you to fill up yourself from a profounder place. So you're literally developing a self that can take higher frequencies of your unending abundance as an eternal being. You're learning how to empty that out. And what we're looking at here is every movement of life, just like your day to day, for instance, you're literally unfolding a higher meaning in all your relationships, all your conversations. You're the awareness that's beginning to know past and present and possibility, and to respond from presence, and new ability that's actually happening will dissolve your past. So therefore, all your bodies will come finer and finer together. Both past, present, and future will become one movement of your profound life. That's unfolding meaning. That's freedom's threshold. You want to be what you first are on every level. That's what you're developing.
Okay.
You that needs no development, which is very strange.
Well, be very interested. I'm teaching the next 2 weekends the same stuff, and see if I'm in a different place the next time I teach, and yeah.
Can I let me just help you along with that.
Yeah.
discover the threshold in each moment.
Yeah.
And I hear that, yeah, there's this part of you that wants to kind of measure how that's looking next week. Okay, I hear that, but you're moving away from the being of that right now, because what you spoke of is now in the past, so it's behind you. Do you see what I mean? So as you begin to step onto freedom's threshold, you're unfolding meaning right now. So you don't need to measure how you're going to do next week. You're going to discover that anyway, you know. You'll discover that, what that is. Discover it now. Discovery is now. Love is now. Life is now. Discover it all now. You're moving on so fast that way.
Yeah, yeah. I'll just keep the discernment in the moment then.
That's completely it. That's being love. That's being who you really are. That's beautiful. That's it.
Yeah, well.
And that empowers those people around you. Not that you're doing anything as Jan, but you are doing as a being. You're being what you are, and therefore there's your being that's in the doing. And that's a transmission that begins to bring grace to everyone's life, because we're all wanting to drink that. So we become a vehicle for that.
Anyhow, thank you for promoting me. It's really putting me on the edge.
I'm promoting you?
No, you've promoted me in May. You know,
okay.
So you put me on the edge.
Well, listen, if I promoted you, you can expect that to reach that place of promotion, there's going to be a great deal of self-transformation.
Yeah. Well, that's already happened and will still happen.
It will continue to happen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Bernie. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So let's see, is there anyone else on the line? And just looking to see how we're doing for time while we're here, actually. What about people in the room? Let's you can hold someone online if you would. Is there anyone in the room that has anything to ask? Anyone in the room? There must be someone in the room. Let's just show the people here who's in the room, shall we? Well, there actually is people in the room. There we go. There must be something that you guys would like to ask. They are alive. It seems that they're not alive, but they are actually alive. So yes, Debbie. Debbie's just put her hand up. Debbie just did. What did you want to ask, Debbie, or was that a sharing that I just heard the murmur from your heart? What's happening for you, Debbie?
Well, I was sharing the forum a lot today at the festival, and I'm really feeling a lightness and a real openness. And
do you bring the microphone just a little bit closer?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just witnessing the beautiful discoveries of the people on the chairs has been really beautiful. It's just raised everything to a new level. But I do have a question, a sort of question. I'm not quite sure how to formulate it, but it's about when you were speaking before about going through the eye of the needle and that things will burn. And I wanted to ask a little bit more about that burning, about that, you know, the painful stuff. I remember something that you spoke of a while ago, on I think it was at the Byron retreat. You spoke about the pain being a sweetness to the pain
Yeah,
at times.
yeah.
And I wanted a little bit of clarity on that.
Okay, okay. When self burns consciously, then there's this softening within the heart. Because when you really let go of a self pattern, and as consciousness, appearing as a human being, you're willing to let go of a pattern, you begin to fall into a deeper place in your heart, and that's where the sweetness comes from. The sweetness comes from that the truth that you're surrendering a part of self that you're being called to surrender, called by your higher self. Then as you're surrendering that gives you access to the greatest sweetness of your own true being. So there's sweet death, because you are consciousness, and your true desire really is to experience consciousness on every level of life. And when consciousness is confined itself to a body-mind in a linear way, and it begins to truly call for greater freedom, call for unfolding the meaning of life, which is love, right? To unfold love. Then when you let go of something, because you really see, I must let this go, and there's a burning, then because you devotedly let it go, you're accessing the greatest sweetness in your heart. So you're experiencing the beyond place, the ground of being, which is sweet. But also you're experiencing the death of a pattern that you used to think it was you, but now you're discovering it's not you, and you're amazed as consciousness as that burns, and it's sweet to allow it to burn. Freedom begins to come over the threshold and embrace the self and bring it into a profounder place of love and being. That's this literary grace. And although on one level there's a burning, there's a sweetness that's beginning to know itself ever deeper inside, and ever more on the display of your humanness. That's very sweet. If there's dying in you, pain in you, and you're holding it tight, then that's just going to get more and more painful. To surrender to what you're knowing in your heart is essential, and to completely give to that surrender brings about a profound transformation of both yourself, your consciousness, and you begin to access a deeper place within.
Yeah.
That's what's sweet. But there's a price in that. The price in that is that as transformation happens and you begin to access a finer place of consciousness, you'll have more knowing, more clarity of deeper places. Do you see what I mean? And those deeper places will also ask you to give up more of yourself, and that's how it works. The more of yourself that you give up, the more you access in the profound place of sweetness. The more yourself begins to shine in the radiance of what you first are. But you have to keep giving up yourself, right? Until you begin to realize who you are beyond the self. You begin to respond as the pure self, moving through consciousness. So you're walking forward the whole time. And you're seeing what you need to do as consciousness like never before. And you're willing to let go of those things in self that are self, and you're willing to let them go completely and move to the next level. Not knowing what's next in terms of how life will unfold, but you know it's true to let go of something because there's a call for you to do that inside. And therefore a new flower will begin to blossom in your heart, in your life, and new possibilities begin to come. More sweetness begins to happen. That's how your mind gets clear, how your heart begins to sing, because you're giving up yourself. but that brings you a greater radiance inside who you are in here. You begin to manifest that first power into life. You also begin to see how you try to control that on a level of self. But you're giving yourself back to the deep place in your heart. That's what you're doing. You're giving yourself back, giving yourself back. Does that strike any chords for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
See, that's you walking forward. You know, that's you really moving from a deeper place and moving that forward in how you respond and what you create and what you action in this life. You're actioning the deeper place and not actioning yourself anymore. See what I mean? So yourself begins to literally die because you're not actioning life from yourself. You're actioning it from what you are in the deepest place and moving life forward. And that's what you become profoundly interested in and in love with, moving life forward from the beyond into the presence of this moment. And it's always on a threshold of greater discovery and greater ability to move that forward in yourself. You seem to know that. I can feel that you seem to, you're knowing that on some level, and the cost of that on some level, right?
Yeah.
Can you speak a little about that?
There seems to be, I saw this today whilst dancing the form many times, that there's a great shift of values,
Yeah, just a little more on the microphone, please. That's it.
There's a great shift of values.
Yeah.
I'm drawn to a different, something with totally different meaning altogether.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
Yeah.
You're moving to a higher level of meaning in the beyond in you. And as you move to that higher level of meaning, that changes everything in life. All your forms begin to get touched by that higher level of meaning. And while you're only concerned with the values of your present forms, you'll create fear and distortion, and you'll want to hold them. There'll be that in there. But while this higher level is coming through, and you're in love with that higher level, and it touches your forms, they will break open to display that higher level. And you'll find everything in the universe comes towards you because you're now in the divine play, the cosmic play of what is profoundly real and meaningful. Do you see what I mean? Now you're living a meaningful life, willing to die in self to recreate self from the deepest place that you're now communing with. Your life begins to be a communication of that deeper place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what takes place. It's funny because as I'm having this conversation with you, I feel the many thresholds that you're on. And also, whilst we're having this conversation, I feel the many thresholds that you're on, and that you're on, and that we're all on. We're all on so many thresholds of higher possibilities, you know? We all are. Yeah. It's just a question of whether we value that higher potential more than what's displayed in ourselves. But to value that higher potential, one must love oneself and have compassion for oneself and begin to turn one's self into a purposeful self, because you're loving that self, understanding that self, and knowing that self. So you're not being a pushy consciousness, a pushy God, you know, you're being a loving God, a compassionate God that understands the dilemma of self. in every body and in one's self. Do you see what I mean? But nonetheless, you are moving that forward. You know, you're not brushing it on the head and saying there, there, there. You're saying there, there, there. And opening it to another level.
Yeah.
And that's so exciting when more than two get together and discover that, because there's a power that exciting and runs through all of us, and it is incredibly nourishing. We all begin to commune with this real freedom, and this real possibility begins to sing through our veins.
Yeah. The people that sat on the chair today, when I was dancing the form, I could see their being. Not the person on the chair, but I really saw the light of them. I really saw it.
That's because you're knowing more light within one's self. You're knowing that in you. You're pulled to the light. When you're pulled to the light in you, you're pulled to light in the other, because there's only I. So you're pulled to that. Do you see what I mean? You're pulled to know that. And in the pull to know that, you'll also be called to give more of that light. Yeah? And therefore to give more compassion to self, to enable that self to take more light. And that's what we all work towards, to enable the self to take more of the light. It's not a push and shove thing, although it might feel like that to the self. This is how the universe works. I'm beginning to acknowledge who I am, who the other is, and our higher possibility amongst a self that's still quite rigid on this planet. But I'm realizing I am eternal, I am that one, we are that one, and I am here to live a meaningful life and walk forward and bring more into this life, the more that I am in the deepest place. I'm here to undo my patterns and unfold more meaning and create more of what I am in this universe. So all beings can know who I am, I, the one who's listening, here. Greater freedom, great freedom for all beings through knowing the I within the heart, that one. We're going to close now, and what I'd like to do, I'd just like to invite you once again to just again seat and return to the heart. And for those of you that know the form, just to bring it about a moment of reality practice. And for those of you that have never seen the form before, you can just bring your hands up and just bring a first finger mudra to each hand. You can close your eyes if you wish, or keep them open, and just recognize how vast the field of beingness is. It is vast, and it is uninterrupted by the movement of self. And yet, it moves that self into greater forms. The display of creativity and abundance. And then this consciousness expands the heart expands and the deep and existence meet and merge. I thank you all for coming along and sharing this evening. We'll be running on the screen what's taking place within this teaching and what we're bringing about in terms of touring, of retreats that are up and coming. So that's just going to happen any moment now. I welcome anybody to write into email for any questions that you would like to ask while this session was on. So if there is anything that you'd like to ask, go onto the website and email the address on that website. Thank you all for coming along this evening. Thank you for your love.